curse of natural resources is real. It's easy to assume corruption is a byproduct of poverty, and it often is, but revenue is also important to consider. In many cases, the curse of natural resources proves it, and not only with the Sicilians and their lemons. Nigeria saw conflict and stifled growth after a windfall of oil money came into the country. Throughout the latter half of the 20th century, President Mobutu of Zaire could buy off his opponents in office, thanks to newfound resources from minerals. An excess of money and resources can destabilize an already weak government. Studies have confirmed civil war is more likely when a country relies on natural resources for money, especially oil. Economic growth is reportedly unrelated to poverty rates or other measures of human rights. 23 countries report at least 60% of their exports come from oil. Incidentally, none are democracies, as pointed out by political sociologist Larry Diamond. Money gained from resources means the government has little incentive to govern, that is, to collect money from legitimate avenues such as taxes. Cosa Nostra is a part of an extensive mafia vocabulary.
Though we throw around the term mafia today, mafia with a capital M only refers to the Sicilian Mafia, known as Cosa Nostra, which means our thing. The term mafia isn't too old. It dates back to when the mafia initially formed. In 1863, a dramatic performance set in a prison titled I Mafiosi della Vicaria led to the widespread knowledge of the term mafia. The original root of the word is the Arabic marfud, which means swindler or cheater. The mafia comprises families controlling districts, with the head of the family appointing someone to run the show. The capo mandamento, or chief of the district, selects a deputy and a few councillors. Then, the capocina, or head of 10, controls the grunts who do the dirty work, the pixiatos. At the top is the padrino, the Godfather.
Some say the modern mafia is a symptom of corruption, not a cause of it.
The fact the mafia still operates today is less a cause than a symptom of corruption, according to Sicilians. There is no industrial base in Sicily, so the mafia goes after public money, banks, and utilities. Public jobs are more than it's who you know. They allegedly have exchanges for sex or money. Unemployment fluctuating between 20–30% makes extortion a way of life in Sicily and allows the mafia to continue to charge businesses for protection. The mob also controls healthcare in Sicily. Sicily appears to resist the mafia, and they did, at least for a while, but corruption still exists. Money funneled through Sicily's government rarely ends up at its desired destination, but in the hands of corrupt officials and the mafia. Development projects undertaken by the government often do nothing for Sicily, and instead create more money for those running the show.
American mob bosses still exist.
Someone who knows almost nothing about the mob has probably heard the names John Gotti or Carlo Gambino. The mafia's pervasiveness in American culture spread from classics like the Godfather trilogy to modern reinterpretations like The Sopranos. Interviews with past mafiosi in the United States suggest the mob has partly declined because Italians don't have to rely on crime to survive. Likewise, the mafia relied heavily on cooperation from politicians, which is now less common. And one of the mafia's main tenets, don't talk about the mafia, is reportedly long gone. Whereas most mafiosi of the past would rather die than speak to law enforcement, today the choice is easy: cooperate and save yourself. Some blame Gotti for the downfall of the American mafia, as he refused to adapt to American ways and ultimately became a victim of his ego.
Others, like Lucky Luciano, were willing to work within the American political system. Luciano, head of the Genovese family, was one of the mobsters who helped the U.S. government in WW2. He is responsible for splitting the New York mob into the 5 notable families. One mob boss is still around in the United States, though. A Cosa Nostra expert calls Skinny Joey Merlino of Philadelphia a gangland icon who is one of the most dynamic, gutsy, and ambitious mob leaders of all time.
September 11 might have given the American mob a leg up.
When a book on the American mob 5 families debuted in 2005, many thought it signaled the end of an era for the mafia. However, author Selwyn Robb believed otherwise by devoting 20 pages of the 765-page book to the mob's potential comeback. Robb predicted the attacks on September 11, 2001 would give Cosa Nostra an opportunity to return to power. Robb's point proved true. New York's FBI bureau would have its focus shifted away from organized crime and mob bosses, pivoting to terrorism and homeland security. Before September 11, between 300 to 400 agents worked on organized crime cases. After the attacks, this number decreased dramatically to 20 or 30. Accordingly, Robb claimed if September 11 had not happened, the FBI could have successfully crushed the mob. In 2011, proof of the mafia family's existence came to light when the FBI busted 127 mob affiliates. In 2016, authorities arrested 46 more in a mafia network branching from Massachusetts to Philadelphia to South Florida. Robb didn't believe the FBI would return to focusing on the Cosa Nostra. As the family's managing operations headed to the suburbs, leaving the clustered Little Italy area, for example, the risk for corruption increased. Since the mob's markets changed from lemons to Viagra, there's no demise in sight. According to Robb, the big threat with the mafia moving into the suburbs is that you need to make sure they never get so large again that they have political influence. That is the scariest aspect. They get the money, and then they get the influence. They can fix elections. They get lawyers. They get judges. They were so influential in politics and the court system, and with that influence, they could fix elections, even as well into the latter part of the 20th century.
The Sicilian Mafia received a devastating blow in the 1990s.
The mafia's emergence into drug trafficking led to the rise of 2 families in the 1970s. One of these families, the Corleonesi, was power-hungry. They killed any detractors, including noteworthy political leaders, judges, and police officers. 2 judges in Italy were instrumental in bringing down the mafia, Paolo Borsellino and Giovanni Falcone. The mafia killed Borsellino during the prosecution, but Falcone became a mafia expert and the organization's biggest enemy. Falcone had a reliable informant, enabling him to learn the mafia was essentially running Italy through puppet politicians. Consequently, he assisted in indicting 475 mafiosi. They received a collective total of 65 years in prison. However, Falcone paid for his role in the trial. In 1992, the mafia planted a road bomb which killed Falcone, his wife, and bodyguards. The next generation of the mafia was less brutal than their predecessors. Bernardo Provenzano took over before his arrest in 2006. He evaded authorities for 43 years. Authorities detained Provenzano's successor in 2007 after he escaped the police for 25 years. The mafia still exists in Sicily and the United States, but they no longer exert the same influence as during the lemon boom of the 1850s or the drug boom of the 1950s.
The mafia's hold in Italy faltered, then the US helped them get it back.
When Benito Mussolini rose to power, he considered the mafia a threat to his fascist regime. In 1926, he designated a prefect Cesare Mori to cleanse Italy of the mafia. Mori was relatively successful and convicted hundreds of mafiosi. Those who escaped fled to the United States, hoping to re-establish their stronghold there. The United States, wanting to free Italy from Mussolini's rule, looked to Italian mob bosses for help. Two mob bosses already incarcerated in U.S. prisons, Lucky Luciano and Vito Genovese, agreed to help the United States in return for commuted prison sentences. The United States eventually reached out to Sicilian bosses as well. All parties agreed the mafia bosses would remain in Sicily to keep control. The mafia dove into rebuilding their influence, which faltered under Mussolini, buying politicians' favor for votes and the ability to infiltrate entire neighborhoods. A mafia presence in both Italy and the United States led to drug trafficking between the two groups starting in the late 1950s, likely more lucrative than stealing lemons. The mafia remained strong, thriving well into the 1990s.
Cultivating lemons is difficult and time-consuming.
Other than their anti-scurvy properties, lemons were highly valued in the 19th century because its cultivation is difficult. Lemon trees can't grow in many places, and it takes 7 or 8 years for a lemon tree to produce fruit. Sicily started growing citrus in the 11th century. The region has a year-round temperate climate and fertile soil. Consistent warmth is key to lemon production. After exposure to low temperatures for a few minutes, the citrus flowers and fruits wither. Sicily's perfect setup for lemon cultivation allowed citrus producers to harvest twice a year, making the market especially lucrative. This massive investment in time and labor made producers wary of thieves and criminals. It's logical they would turn to someone to protect their resources, considering the government proved too uninvolved. Likewise, the mafia wisely targeted lemons and not something else. Why go for wheat or olives when lemons are easy to steal and could result in higher profits? The mafia formed to stop people from stealing lemons.
The Sicilian economy set up the mafia for success.
The Sicilian economy set up the mafia for success.
Scurvy is the debilitating and often deadly result of vitamin C deficiency.
Scurvy is the debilitating and often deadly result of vitamin C deficiency.
One naval surgeon found citrus could stop scurvy, and the lemon market boomed.
One naval surgeon found citrus could stop scurvy, and the lemon market boomed.
Hey guys, thank you so much for the support and likes and comments down below, and also thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to see you in the next video. Then take care, bye.